And Victor, are you Mina?
Hello?
Hello, Gregory. Can you hear me? Gregory, you're online now. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Yeah. Hello, Gregory. I can hear you.
Hello?
Hello, Gregory.
Hello.
You're live on the radio. And Mina, are you there? Mina?
Hello.
Hello, Mina.
Hello?
Hello there.
Oh, that's
Yes. Can you
Mr.
hear?
BOK.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Hello, how are you?
I'm
Yes,
good,
I'm good,
thanks.
sir. Hi, Pastor.
Okay.
Okay, is Mr. Faruqi there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you?
No, not at the moment.
I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, we'll wait.
Okay. They can't hear me.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Maybe they can't hear me because of that. Okay. Dear listeners, this is Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program on, and just after 6 o'clock. I'm Saad here in the studio. I'm trying to get my colleagues Gregory and Mena online. Gregory, are you there? They can't hear. So the other thing is it's not on mute.
Are you on it?
What's happening? Sorry, listeners, we're trying to get my two colleagues online, and we can't. They can't hear me yet. Gregory, can you hear me now? Don't know why they can't hear. We're going to keep trying to find them. So let's just play some ad. Shall we play? Okay, listeners, we're still having an issue with the Skype. Dear listeners, while we're waiting to sort this out, I'm going to read you what the show is all about, tell you what the show is all about. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And we have a topic every week. The topic for today is the wisdom of the Lord. You can join in with any questions or comments on this UK number, which is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. I'm just going to check again. Leon, how about this? Plug it in, I think. So I'm going to tell you, listeners, what is the Grail message. Just before I do that, Gregory, can you hear me? Gregory and Mena, can you hear me? Hello, Gregory. Can you hear me?
Hello?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, of course.
Oh, okay. Sorry for the trouble. And Mena, are you there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Apologies. Somehow I didn't know I was on mute. I can't really believe that. Apologies, listeners, for the little problem there. Hope we're back online now. So, just to remind you, listeners, the topic for discussion tonight is the wisdom of the Lord. And as usual, I'm going to begin with what is the Grail message? The Grail message in the light of truth by Abdrushin is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world, a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the reader is again brought closer to life and led back to God. The Grail message deals with important fundamental questions of life by explaining in a clear and logical way the automatic working of the laws of nature, the whole weaving of creation, allowing every process to be recognized and thereby the purpose of our whole life. It is directed at the individual and speaks to the innate experiences of the human being, their strengths and weaknesses. Thus, every reader has the opportunity to discover, through the intuitive perception, if what is stated is the truth. Combining with matter-of-fact reasoning, a complete world picture arises, where there is no separation between the visible world and the great world beyond the five senses, nor any separation between scientific and religious striving for knowledge. I'd like to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin.
Yes, of course.
The hearer.
Sorry for the trouble. Anna, are you
Oh.
there?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, apologies.
Okay, so there's a big feedback going on.
I can't really believe that. Apologies, listeners, for the little problem there. We're back online now. So, just to remind you, listeners, the topic for discussion tonight is
Leon.
the wisdom of the Lord.
Repeat.
And as usual, I'm going to begin with what is the Grail
Can
message?
you stop it?
The Grail message is the light of truth by Abrushin, is a spiritual knowledge of life. It offers an explanation of the world,
Repeat. Can you
a picture of creation on the basis of natural laws. Its lectures contain valuable basic elements as a help in life. For through the knowledge mediated, the readers get
Mena,
closer to life.
Mena,
Yes, please.
I think you're
Yes,
playing.
please.
You're playing the radio in the background, and it's on a
Okay,
delay.
it's
And so
interfering.
just
Okay,
put it on
okay.
silent, please. Yeah,
Okay, all right.
yeah,
then.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So now you're live with me and with
Okay.
Gregory. Okay. All right. So, dear listeners, I'm just going to give you a couple of quotes from the author of the Grail message, Abrushin. And apologies for a little bit of errors there. So, in the technical errors again. So, here we go. The hearer and reader of my lectures should always work within himself, keenly probing and building bridges from one lecture to the other, as well as out into the great and small world happenings. Only then will he be able to understand the Grail message and find that it gradually shapes itself into one complete whole, without leaving any gaps. Again and again, in all the happenings, the reader will come back to the basic features. He can explain everything without having to change even one single sentence. The word of the Grail message lives, so that it permits only those people who really carry the honest desire in their souls to find abundantly. All else is automatically rejected by it. For the arrogant and those who seek superficially, the message will remain the book with 7 seals. And I'd like to give you one more quote from the author. I wish to fill the gaps which have so far always remained unanswered in the souls of men, and which never leave any serious thinker in peace if he earnestly seeks for the truth. So, dear listeners, just to remind you, the topic for tonight is the wisdom of the Lord. And you can call, text, or use WhatsApp with any questions or comments. This is our UK number, which is 079 444 313 66. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 66. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Gregory, the topic we've chosen tonight, the wisdom of the Lord. Such a beautiful words and picture that it gives us. And obviously, everybody wants to believe that's true, and those who believe in the Lord, of course, and somehow, maybe sometime, we are not sure about that. And because what you see in the world doesn't seem to look like it's something you could call it a lot of good. There's good things happening and also bad things happening, and you sometimes wonder, is there any wisdom in that? So, if I start with my first question, yes, I think this is quite a sort of things we see all the time and so I'm going to say, what evidence is there in nature that bears witness to that God is wise? So,
well, thanks for that question. And it is specific. What evidence is there in nature that he who created nature is wise? That's a good question, and that calls for the thorough examination of nature itself. And the question is, what is nature? Or to put it otherwise, the construct of nature, what does it entail? When one reflects on this, one will come to the conclusion that all that we can perceive with our five senses belong to nature, man itself. And there could be more that we cannot perceive with our five senses, which lies beyond its capacity, the capacity of the local space and the local time. If one looks out, we can also say that not only the earth belongs to nature, but also the so-called solar systems and the physical universe which we are able to observe. We also know our limitations, if we need to be honest, that there are many things that are out there which we still cannot perceive with our five senses, yet they belong to nature. In nature, many have observed that there is harmony. It only means that the construct, which is called nature, must have been put there with the sense of harmonious continuity. Therefore, if one examines nature in its coming into being, in its propagation, and in its dissolution, and then coming back again, all these point very simply, that there is harmony. Harmony is only put there by some wisdom, not chaotic behavior, not arbitrariness. So by itself, observing nature itself, one can already see the lack of arbitrariness and the presence of well-ordered processes. It is this that is referred to in nature, and is this that serves as self-evident that the construct of nature must have been put there by the wisdom of the power that made it to be.
Thank you, Gregory, for that. And I notice you included human beings as part of nature, and you've all gave the example of how nature being having harmony, order, structure. I think you said more, and I can't remember everything you said. And then when I look at the human being, in a sense, there is the like human being is there is an order there because obviously we how we function uh, in our, let's say, natural bodily parts, and how we um, eat and live and so on, breathing, for example, and so on. We have to follow certain, um, let's say, work within a system. But one thing you notice with nature, what you don't see so much in a way the human being is, nature is always like beautiful and producing, well, I will say, helpful things, and always in helpful, beneficial way. It works in a beneficial way, while man or human beings can seem to go little, let's say, astray and can cause a lot of damage. Which, yes, we see damage also if I look at it, nature with in terms of weather, destruction, and that too. But it's I would say that's
Yeah.
just the process of nature. Would you say the human being uh, is different
Yeah.
in a way?
Yeah, can I comment a bit?
Okay, Mena, yeah, if you can add to what I'm saying, yes.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if Greg would be okay to clarify the fact that I'm looking to my understanding that nature, the part of man which is nature, could be that substantiate part of him. I'm not too sure if the spiritual part of man is also belongs to nature. Maybe it would be good to give some clarification on that. Do you get me, Sad?
Yes. Okay. So let
Yeah.
me bring that question together with what you and I are trying to putting forward. So it's just like one short question. So Gregory, so with Mena and myself together asking this question, basically you talked about nature having structure, order, and harmony, but the human being seems to be, and you did also mention that human being is part of nature, but somehow there is some difference as well, and maybe you can highlight that and point that out.
When one observes what we can see physically with our physical eyes, with our senses, in a discussion such as this, we start from that which we can perceive before we move forward to what lies behind it. And that was why in the beginning one framed an explanation such that our attention will be focused on that which we can perceive with our senses, albeit our physical senses. And as we go on, one is then forced to look at the motive behind what motivates many things which we now observe physically. Of course, there are many other things which needs to be discussed. When nature is mentioned, it is that which has been, one is talking basically of forces which one observes the coming into being, its growth and dissolution. When man is looked at from the physical level, without mentioning that which activates the physical body, one looks at, or one focuses on that which is being perceived and one stops there. Like I said, later, one will now look at the whole thing combined. But basically, when one looks at nature, the basic question that one should ask, are we part of nature? That word we is already referring to that entity which makes use of what is observable physically. Or are we not part of nature? Because you can see that a physical body came from the union of elements that have arisen from out of nature. So the big thing that one needs to know is that we make use of what nature offers. But what stands behind nature itself, the structures behind nature, the elements that make up nature, these are the things that we need to look into very carefully and see how these constructs have been put in place. What sort of language has been woven into it to make it understandable? These are the questions which we need to examine.
Thank you for that, Gregory.
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's clarified.
Yeah. Mena, did you want to ask something on that?
No, I think it's been clarified. That's a perfect picture I wanted to, for him to point out. It's very good. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now I want to not forget the topic for tonight, which is the wisdom of the Lord. And obviously, we have talked about nature here being one of the, let's say, coming from the Lord, you can say. It's His creation. So, and then Gregory, have mentioned our bodies, focusing on the physical level so far, have been made through nature as well, or from nature. So, okay. And then we've talked about order in nature and structure, and obviously that applies to us in our formation of the human body as well. So maybe we should now look at, in nature there are like land, mountains, plants, the world we live.
Father, can I come in just quickly? I think that question did say, what evidence in nature bears witness that the Almighty is wise?
Mm-hmm.
So that wisdom in nature, has it been clarified that, given the fact that nature exists, you can now say that the Almighty is wise in given nature as it is?
Okay. Let me reword that question then. So, when I've get you correct, what you're saying is there wisdom by looking at nature? Does that show there's a wisdom in the Creator who brought nature to, who brought if I can use the word created nature, if I can say it like that, it sounds a bit funny. So yes. So
Gregory can. Yeah.
Okay. So Gregory, yes, can you expand on the wisdom in nature? What is the wisdom there?
Yeah.
Is it to bring life? Is there what is the purpose of this nature? Let's say like that. What's the wisdom in there?
Well, may I advise that we take these things a bit step by step?
Yes.
Else there's so much which, in the first instance, it is very surprising that many a person will assume that they themselves are able to determine how things are to be. Yet, they are also convinced they did not create themselves. At the same time, they are also aware of the power that streams through all that they are able to perceive. Yet this power is not in them, but they know it streams through all that exists, including nature. And what is surprising, many a one who does not even acknowledge the existence of this power, but know or sense that this power is there, proceeds to ask if the source of this power is wise. One can only shake one's head that the evidence stares at you in the face, and yet many still are oblivious of this particular evidence. That the power that brought forth nature as a structure, as a construct, the power that also nourishes nature, which power exists, has always existed, which power orders nature. These are the features which many a one have ignored, and yet they still ask, is this power whose will brought nature, orders nature, nourishes nature, is this power wise? The only answer which one may give in response is the power is.
Thank you again.
But man is yet to be.
Okay. Thank you again, Gregory, for that. Definitely, you've given a picture where how we should start thinking about this subject of wisdom of the Lord, and not how we can approach it. So thank you for bringing that up. Now, what I'd like to ask you is, there is clearly a wisdom, and with us, human beings, we need to work with that wisdom so that we can, fulfill our purpose and work in harmony with nature. We are here on this earth, and how things are going is, yes, we are the, let's say, in quotes, this superior creature on this earth, in the sense of we are able to do many things, and yet many of the things that we do doesn't align and work with nature. It's especially we hear in the news all the time now about plastics and being thrown away in the waste in the sea, and now there's so much damage it is causing to nature as well, the other creatures that are there, not only just us. And it seems we don't have really an idea or a clue of how to work in harmony with nature. Even the environment, it's been a big topic this weekend, with a lot of protests. In fact, from last week, they even had children coming out of school to protest because they're worried about their future. They're thinking the adults are no more serious about, looking after this planet, and their future could be ruined, or could be quite devastated for them and the future generations. So, what I want to ask you is, how can we can observe nature like you've described it. Is there a way for us to work with nature, to tune in? Science is doing what it's doing, but it's doesn't seem to be able to achieve this harmony. So how do we go about that?
Well, thank again for this type of questions. Before one can start tuning in with nature and work with nature, one must be able to observe features, regularly occurring features of nature. One must have to examine nature intrinsically, and also to know these key features. Only in continuous examination can one receive certainty and personal conviction of how nature works. Once one now understands how nature works, that is the first step that the observer needs to know, and then know how to respond to it, such that it will bring benefit to it. So, if you wish to work with nature, then you must observe the manifestations of nature, the laws of nature, which laws govern all these manifestations, and then know how one needs to adjust oneself to these laws in such a way that one will be in harmony with these laws. Only what is in harmony with the laws of nature is agreeable to nature. Else is in disharmony, and catastrophes and quagmire are likely to follow.
Yeah, I think I'll agree with you, because that is actually the starting point of all learning, natural laws. Thank you, Gregory.
Okay, thank you, Gregory, as well. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program, and the aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message by Abdrushin. And the topic for discussion tonight is the wisdom of the Lord. You can join in the discussion with any questions or comments. The number to contact us here in UK, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. And if you're interested in knowing more about the Grail message or getting a copy of the Grail message, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that, www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. Gregory, I want to move slightly to a different sort of direction now, which is we're talking about the wisdom of the Lord, and one thing you think of there is justice, and I have a question where I just, let's say, my assumption is straight away, I believe in the Lord, and there's love, and there is justice. And I think, but then sometimes I wonder why the justice takes long to, take effect. So, you do something, let's say, which is harmful, and well, many times you don't see the result. We have said one of the laws is, Jesus put it this way: what you sow, you shall reap. Or in the Grail message it says the law of reciprocal action. And somehow, which you in that you assume that there's going to, what you sow you will reap. So you're thinking, oh, something happened to me or to somebody else, and let's say some harmful thing happened, or you did something harmful, but it doesn't seem that the result comes immediately or within our, let's say, we're not able to see that, let's say, at least the time scale what we have in our anticipation, it seems to be different from, let's say, the wisdom of the Lord. And I would like to say, can you explain how that can be? That is there some wisdom in his time scale that we ourselves are not able to appreciate?
Again, thanks for these questions, because they help us to examine further. Like you mentioned, it said, when Christ said, whatever a man sows, that shall he reap. And when you also mentioned in the message the laws of reciprocal action, that already gives a picture of a balance, a reciprocal activity. But the key here is to understand what that law really entails. The law of reciprocal activity or reciprocal action. Before you talk about a reciprocal action, there must have been an activity, there must have been an action. An action is an activity which has been initiated in the universe. That action has been initiated either physically or within our brain thoughts, or to be more precise, from the spirit. When that action is initiated, it comes, it's as if it's been spun by man. That action or that activity leaves man to travel. In that activity or that action, there is like a stamp in that activity which carries that which is identifiable to the originator. And this activity travels far and wide in accordance with spiritual gravitation, depending whether it sinks or rises, in accordance with homogeneity, is able to be attracted to some other activities, or it attracts some other activities, depending on its intensity. Because the initiator still has that stamp, personal stamp within it, it travels just like you will have an elastic until it is fully laden. And before long, the emotions which are quite independent and runs in creation, allows it to report back what has been sown. It allows returns to come back to the initiator. That is the reciprocal activity. As at when these returns will be depends on the features that had been initiated in the first start, and also the intensity. It also depends on the various strata that have been touched. So you'll find that in creation, there are many other things which are involved, which support the thoughts one has put out. If the thoughts are of a noble nature, they will rise higher, and many others will add theirs to it and will also ensure it returns. If these motives are of a base nature, of course, they will sink down and drag that personality down to that level. So the question which many keep asking, when will that be? Creation is mobile, but one thing is certain: they will come when they will come. The time that we ourselves have set sometimes is immaterial, because there are different strands to it. But within the mills of creation, within the mills of nature, things may be quickened up. Things may move faster depending on the inner volition of man. So they will come here or hereafter. But one should not forget that when a farmer goes to the farm and plants corn, it takes about 3 months, sometimes a bit less than that, sometimes a bit more than that. When the same farmer goes to the farm and plants the iroko tree or the cocoa tree, you will find that these take much longer, and it all depends on the kind which the initiator have put in there.
All right. Oh, thank you, Greg. Would you be able to expand on, the kind of actions, the kind of forms that man can, throw out there into nature? Is it just, physical forms like the maize you sow in the farm? Are there other actions man can also put out there?
When one mentions maize, is because these are things that many can see with their physical eyes. The thoughts that we harbor, these thoughts are real. Or are we going to deny that the thoughts we harbor don't exist, or they only exist in our head? So the thoughts, which thoughts sometimes spring from the earthly intellect, or some of the thoughts that spring from the inner part of man, which is spirit, those movements that start from there, they carry the power to be able to touch many places. There are some thoughts which involves drinking. There are thoughts which involve envy. Yet there are also noble thoughts. These thoughts we cannot see with our physical eyes, but that does not mean they don't exist. But we know that when man talks about drinking or smoking, these thoughts are there. So they are also a starting point. And since we know that they exist first within us, they also carry some motive power. We can then extrapolate that the source of these is likely to be more than what we care to imagine, which is what lies behind it. It is what lies behind it, which one keeps referring to as the motive force, that really counts. What man sees are the outer effects or the outer manifestations. However, to give a more precise picture, one will have to refer everyone to the work In the Light of Truth, the Grail message. There, many things can be settled.
Oh. All right, thank you, Gregory. Thanks. That's a very good clarification. But you've just mentioned just two: our actions and then our thoughts. Is that all? Could our words be free? Can you expand on that, please?
The idea is not to mention everything, but to encourage many to examine for themselves. For the time which we have here is limited. So we discuss the main features. One can go into thoughts, one can go into words, one can go into physical activities. There will be no end to it. And that is why one mentioned and one referred to the work in the Light of Truth. There one will find everything that one seeks for.
Oh, thank you. I thought there could be a classification that our actions can be basically three: our actions, our physical actions, our words, and our thoughts. Yeah. Would that be correct?
Yes, that will be correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sad.
Thank you. Gregory, just continuing on our thinking about, a law of reciprocal action and let's say fate, thinking about that. There's some people, let's say religious people, they believe that in this wisdom of the Lord, that everything is planned in their life. And at the same time, they believe that there's a free will. Man has free will. And it sounds a bit funny, but that's people do believe that we have free will, and that everything's planned, by God already. So whatever we do is already known ahead. So what I would like to ask you, is that possible? Is that true? That we have free will, we can do whatever we want, and it is already known by the Almighty, everything we're going to do, right to the, every second, let's say. So is that really true?
First, if we take these questions one by one, that will be much better. Else, there will be confusion. Okay. First one is that, is there a free will for man? The simple answer will be, if there were no free will, will man be speaking the way he is speaking? Free will lies in choice. Man is free to choose is free to decide which paths to follow, which elements he or she needs to use in the construction of his paths. If a man wishes to use hatred and divisiveness as his own long-term strategy, that is his free will. He has chosen. Or is he going to deny he hasn't chosen? To choose means there is a choice. So, no matter how one looks at it, the freedom of choice is there, even if the choices are limited.
Apologies.
It is how one uses this freedom of choice that takes man from one level to the other, either upwards or downwards. What was the second question again?
The second question,
Yeah.
well, it's to do with basically everything in our life is already, we say the Lord is wise, and so everything in our life is already planned. But the conflicting part of it was we also have the free will. So, like,
Now,
so is it everything? Everything is planned. Is everything already planned?
like we said, we have the freedom of choice. The freedom of choice, which we refer to as the free will, that is already planned. We cannot deny that we have this free will. But the path we need to take, is that already planned by us or by the Creator? The Creator already gave a free will through which we plan our path. Not that He, the Creator, should plan a path for us. We ourselves will have to decide. Wisdom has nothing to do with the Creator always jumping into our thoughts to see how we decide or not decide. Wisdom has everything to do with the laws which the Creator has woven into creation or into nature. And within this, the human spirit is granted as a part of the weaving its own free will, which free will should ensure that he or she makes the right decisions whether to ascend or not to ascend. This wisdom lies in the language which the Creator has woven into the construct which we refer to as creation, in such a way that they not only apply to the human being as we know him, but also other creatures. Other creatures, not only biological, but the non-biological, that which we see, chemical, physical, non-physical. That is what wisdom is about. Wisdom weaves that which is beneficial for the creatures in creation. The error has always been to consider that man is the only one. Besides man, there are other creatures. After all, the animals are also creatures. The plants are also creatures. The wisdom of the Lord weaves into all this the sustenance, continuity, the evolution, and the dissolution. So the wisdom of the Lord transcends the human pettiness, which they themselves call wisdom. Their pettiness, which cannot even understand or be understood by their fellow men. The wisdom of the Lord rules all that there is, not only in nature, but also in creation. That is the wisdom that is being referred to.
Thank you for that, Gregory.
Yeah, I think that's very good. But I think it's also good to clarify the fact that given the free choice of man to do whatever he likes, I mean, to take out of creation whatever he chooses, he is also irrevocably bound to the consequence of any action he takes. Could be the thoughts, could be his words, could be his deeds. He's irrevocably bound to taste out of what he has sown.
Okay.
In the explanation of the law of reciprocal activity or reciprocal action, one mentioned very clearly that when man initiates an activity, he or she has his personal stamp in that activity. That is what binds the personality to that activity. So, whatever now lies, whatever that activity on the long run returns, that connection is always there. Like a shareholder, he or she will have to enjoy that which they have put in creation. That is the personal stamp that one had mentioned.
Thank you, Gregory, for that. There's something I still want to explore with regards to the wisdom of the Lord and man's free will. If with the free will of man, you can go. Let's say man can go make mistake, but also can do evil. And yes, there's the law of reciprocal action, which makes sure there's a balance, and every action there's a reaction, and you get the consequences of what you have sowed. But somehow, if that is continuously happening, it doesn't seem to result in that the man will, he's harming other things as well. When he's misusing his free will, he's continuously harming, and and it's like damaging other creatures and other parts of creation, and it doesn't seem fair, if I say it like that he can continue to do that. So, is that a wise thing to be given this free will when man is so sort of how can I say, not susceptible, but so has that weakness that he's a lot of times we go wrong basically, or do evil things. So, is there some sort of
Yeah.
greater wisdom in that? Because it doesn't seem to be wise, when man is continuously making harming. Let me just say it like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, before Gregory comes in, let me clarify the fact that whatever you sow, I mean, it comes back to you in return. And when you taste out of that which you've sown, when you find it bitter, you will now adjust your actions and take on new courses. I mean, the global warming, which people are complaining of the effects, is because what they have sown in the past is returning back to us. And now we are tasting the bitterness, and we now are making changes to new courses. But
Yeah.
Gregory can expand on that.
Yeah, but I just to follow on from what you're saying, I hear you can say the law of action and reaction, or law of reciprocal action there, but the problem is man is still going, how can I say, it's astray and causing much harm, and it doesn't end. It continues to go worse and worse and worse, and let's say if I were to look at the whole creation, the harm is not only to the human beings, fellow human being, but also to other creatures who haven't done anything to cause that harm, and yet they are suffering. In addition to that, so is it what I'm in a way questioning that maybe free will is not a wise thing? Maybe there should be not a free will. So is that really a wisdom? Because if it continues to cause harm, it can't be, a good thing. That's my question really. So Gregory, if you can look at that.
It's a great question. The alternative is for man to develop its innate abilities, which have been sown into it. Man needs to be able to decide the paths it needs to follow. No two people can follow the same paths. That is why the free will is granted for man to make a choice. Which choice is to bring it back home to its origin, the paradise of man, either as a conscious, a self-conscious spiritual being, or it goes back as a spirit gem. That means unconscious, an unconscious state. That free will is an intrinsic feature. To turn around and say that that feature, which was granted by the wisdom of the Creator, that free will, which was found necessary for man to make its choice, to not have foreseen how man will make his choice, is only a product of the limitation of the whole matter of the understanding of the personality. For when the free will is granted, each person needs to take on that which will benefit it in order to rise higher, or choose a different path which will, on the long run, ensure that it does not rise higher and it goes back home to paradise as an unconscious spirit gem. So the free will cannot be taken away, but there is a time limit which is granted to the personality to mature. And once that time approaches, each person still has to make a decision on how they wish to proceed. Those whose decisions are in harmony with the laws of creation will rise higher as self-conscious spiritual beings. Those who have made decisions to harm others are then tied below And because the structure they have created for themselves is not in accordance with the will, those structures will be destroyed. That means the structures they have created will disintegrate. Thereby, they go back home to paradise as unconscious spirit gem. The question has always been how to be. Man should be grateful that the free will is granted, because it's only through the free will man can make progress. Else, it will be that man is not granted the opportunity to choose. Now, consider for yourself that you are in a place and you consider wisdom to be not granted the opportunity to choose, then that is not wisdom. The human spirit must be granted that opportunity to choose and strive to awaken. Seen from the side of man, it looks as if it's injustice, for man does not even understand, or many don't understand, what true justice is. If only they would strive to see true justice through the laws which have been woven into creation, then they will receive clarity. Else, they will always see injustice because they see only one part of it and not the other part.
Thank you for that, Gregory.
Yeah. Can I quickly comment, Todd? Yeah, I think yeah, I do accept the fact that man has left to his own free will. Has this been always well? This freedom to choose, is it infinitely? Does it just go on forever? Hasn't did the Almighty Father not put in, checkpoints, where He has offered help to mankind, in order not to go astray in exercising this free will? And Gregory expand on that. Yeah.
Thanks for these questions. As you will find, the free will, you said, does it go on forever? That means infinitely so.
Yeah.
What you'll find, like was mentioned, is that within the laws of creation, we have already mentioned that there is a law of reciprocal action or reciprocal activity. Just as something is thrust out and needs to rebound back, just like the human spirit leave paradise as unconscious spirit gems and they need to come back, a cycle is therefore completed. That cycle as if defines a time. Within that time, the human spirit is granted the opportunity with its intrinsic free will to develop from an unconscious state to a self-conscious state. Within that time. So when you say forever, that is not the case. Within that time, for the reciprocal activity defines time. So, within the confines of that, the human spirit is granted an opportunity to be.
Yeah.
When one says that we have an unconscious, the unconscious is a state unable to participate in the activities actively, unconsciously. It has, what structure would one allude to that? It's a germ. It's a germ that needs to start again. Whereas the self-conscious, those innate, those innate talent which has been planted into it have now come to fruition. In that case, they can participate actively. These are two different things. So, as with everything, one must consider all activities within the laws through which they themselves, the human spirits, came into existence. Else, many will say anything can happen. No, anything cannot happen. The features of creation remain the same. They condition, they sustain, they nourish. And if man is unable to attune itself to these features, then it is its loss.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Gregory. What I'm trying to, make you come out with is that, within this period, for man to move from that unconscious state to that self-conscious state, in the use of his free will, is it for the free will just to go on like that without guides, without help, without direction? What are those? What are those things put in place?
In the first instance, wisdom had made it possible in the establishment of structures of creation that these guides have always been there. The guides you are referring to are the ones which many now know as maybe prophets, the teachings of Christ, and the different forerunners that have existed in different communities. Of course, these were guides, but the wisdom had placed many more guides out there, which guides are still available. These guides have always been available for those who open themselves. These guides are available in nature. Some of these guides, many are able to open up and call them nature beings. For in the past, in local communities, before the so-called advent of modern medicine, many a guide in a community or many a person was able to perceive gently the activities or the effects of the activities of these guides.
Help us, yeah.
And they opened themselves and they listened and followed the directives given by these guides. So the wisdom of the Creator, which wisdom is personal, has always put things in place in such a manner that the human spirit cannot even imagine. It is true that through Moses, many things were written. Before Moses, were they not guides? As time went on, depending on the maturity of a people, different guides were able to guide them as they opened up. But discussions on these guides can be found in the work In the Light of Truth, the Grail message. Therein, every form of guide, be it that which we are able to perceive and not even being able to perceive, is always available, ready to help when the human spirit longs for it.
Yeah.
One
So I
can
think
only say that for many who really long and wish to know, let them go and examine the work in the light of truth.
I think it's better to clarify the fact that we had helpers. I mean, helpers. I think guides are actually further away. That you have helpers first that are nearer to man than your guides. Is that correct?
Like one has stressed, let one step develop before a second step, else there will be too much confusion in all this. And that is why one is choosing one's words or sentences or phrases and refer many back to the work in the light of truth. After all, this is only an introduction to that work. It
Yes.
doesn't and can never, ever replace the work itself. Ours is to discuss that and point every listener to this work so that they can decide for themselves how they wish to go.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Gregory. Dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program. The aim of the show is to introduce you to the spiritual knowledge in the light of truth, the Grail message, as Gregory has been pointing out. And if you want to get a copy of the Grail message or get some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. And I'll spell that, www.grail, G-R-A-I-L, message, MESSAGE.com. And I would also like to let the listeners know, those of you who are in London or able to get to London, there's an introductory talk on the Grail message this Saturday, 28th of September, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. at the Theosophical Society, which is near Baker Street. The actual address, I'm just going to find it for you in a second, but it's Theosophical Society, 50 Gloucester Place, W1U8EA, and it's happening, as I said, at 1 o'clock this Saturday. So you're welcome to join us there, you can find out more about the Grail message there. And the topic for tonight's discussion is the wisdom of the Lord. You can join us with any question or comments. The number to contact us here, it is 079 444 31366. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. That is a UK number. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 31366. Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. Now, Gregory, we just been talking about the laws, the free will of man, and what I wanted to now look at is, and Mena has been mentioning about helpers, and he wanted us to be specific about some helpers. But as you, Gregory, pointed out, everybody can look into the Grail message, and the variety of helpers you can find. Now, so one helper I would like to just examine now is Lucifer, or an angel, let's say, the angel Lucifer, who was sent to help man, and of course we're talking about the wisdom of the Lord, and we would believe that his wisdom the helper he sends would be a good helper, but somehow Lucifer decided that rather than, well, maybe he wanted to help, but then somehow he decided that he wanted to do it his way, and sort of turned against the Lord. So, Gregory, what I'd like to ask is, how could that have happened? If God has chosen someone, who is meant to be our helper, and somebody like this, a high angel, and yet somehow he turned away from us. And so, could you tell us what happened there?
Well, thanks for this particular question.
Well, that would be a division.
Answer, sorry, can I?
Yeah, go on, Gregory. Go on. Oh, Mena. Sorry, Mena.
It said.
Yeah, it would be a distraction, but yeah, let's.
Mena, just hold on. Let Gregory answer, and then you can respond. Okay.
Again, thanks for this particular question. It already tells you whether you are high or low. The laws which govern creation, which sustain creation, have to be followed. Like you rightly mentioned, he decided. It wasn't that someone decided for him. He himself decided. As you will find, in any scenario, you will find on the one hand the love which sustains creation. The other hand, the will which also, in harmony with the love, sustains creation. Any activity that must be in creation in accordance with what is intended must swing with the love and also harmonizes with the will. Whenever you find an activity or a decision which does not harmonize with any of these, therein lies problem. Whether that person has come from whatever level, the wisdom of the Almighty rules and maintains creation. So, when he sends someone to walk, to show many others how things should be done, the one who has been granted that opportunity must ensure that only that which swings in the love and harmonizes with the will, only that could be right. You yourself can already make your way through it when you said he decided to do it his own way. creation never belonged to Lucifer. It was only granted an opportunity. So, how can you then come in without understanding the functionality of how these things work, and you introduce your own will, or you decide to introduce your own? Whether you are high or you are low, you have to obey the laws. You yourself can see it even with your political system, where those who consider themselves to be so-called heavyweights will decide to violate the laws and consider that these laws can only apply to others. It also shows the justness of the will and the love of the Almighty. But never forget, when Christ was here, he was even tempted by Lucifer. And, like was pointed out, his response was, how can you claim to be a helper when you do not subject yourself to the will that have brought creation into being? And he told Lucifer, get behind me. Get behind me so that he himself, Lucifer, will learn how things are supposed to be done. Or did he do it? So these sort of questions help to throw light that the wisdom of the Lord Almighty applies not only to the low, but also to the high. And that if you come into creation, first you must understand the features, the mechanism, and the love that has been woven into it, and comply with this, not bringing your own laws into it.
Thank you, Gregory. I know this is a division, but can I argue the fact that could it be, was it not for the fact that Lucifer, the fall of Lucifer, was it not man's fault? I mean, because man had been so engrossed in himself that Lucifer couldn't find any other way to actually convince man to see the other side of life, that he introduced his principle of temptation. I think it was the fault of man, not the fault of Lucifer. But can we leave that? I don't want to argue on that.
But you yourself said you think. Doesn't mean you are sure. When you examine this very carefully. Hello?
Yes, please. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
When you examine very carefully,
yeah,
you will not say, because I find these creatures not as brilliant as they should be, therefore I will introduce my laws. Let's take a very clear example. Moses was sent at that time to the people of the race of the Jews. Moses incarnated, and through the help of the daughter of the Pharaoh, enjoyed a good life.
Yeah.
Moses was to help the fledgling people of the Jews, or the race of the Jews, to come to better and finer recognition. When he saw the people of the Jews, what they were going through, and how undecided they were, he almost backed off until he was called to attention. Did you, Moses, receive punishment when you were supposed to be receiving goodness? Forgetting that he, Moses, was sent to help them. And he was told, if you have doubt on these people, then you have that in me who have sent you to help them.
Okay, thank you. That's a fine one. All right, can I go? Can we take the next question? Why should we always trust the Almighty Father's wisdom in all things?
Very simple, because man came into existence through the wisdom of the Almighty Father.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you. Yeah, after
Yeah.
what I can understand why Gregory's saying that, because he's given so much answers up till now. I think we should understand that now, that
Okay.
at this point it makes sense that you're answering in just one sentence. So yes, I can accept that. Okay, Minna, did you like to ask something else?
No, I thought he would expand on that.
Okay.
Why would we not trust in something else?
So you think we should not? We should trust something else.
Yeah.
Uh,
Why is it imperative that we have to trust in the wisdom of the Almighty Father?
Well, like one mentioned, here we are, the wisdom which sustains the smallest and yet the greatest in creation. And we, as almost insignificant specks of dust in creation, now ask, we who do not have an overview of all the processes in creation, is it not better to trust in the wisdom that brought these processes into existence, which wisdom spans the whole of creation? Or would you prefer a wisdom that only spans a few seconds?
Thank you again, Gregory, for your answer there. I think it's quite clear, where we stand and where the wisdom of the Lord stands. We can't really look at ourselves and say, oh yes, I know how to do this, or I know how this works. And we are like people who are learning, and must remain humble, that yes, we're only learning and growing from learning rather than knowing. Yeah, go on, Mena. Do you want to say something?
Okay, yeah, it said, well, okay, next, there's another question. So Jesus told his disciples, that he's aware of even the number of hair on our heads. How is this possible?
Can you just say that again? I didn't hear you very well.
Yeah, Jesus told his disciples that the Almighty Father even knows the number of hair on our head. So how come is that possible in terms of explaining the wisdom of the Almighty Father?
We have always mentioned that, or in this forum, the wisdom of the Almighty lies in the laws that he himself has woven into creation. These laws are responsible for the coming into being, the sustenance the maturing and also the dissolution.
Yeah.
So through these laws, whether one counts the number of fingers in your hand or the hairs in your head,
Yeah.
it is these laws that establish, that report back all the processes, all the activities in, like we have in reciprocity, in the law of the reciprocal activity, many things are spanned. This wisdom is simple, not as complicated as many an intellectual may wish to view it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. Looking at the chaos in the world today, do we think that these the wisdom of God is still afloat, is still working, or there's some sleeping time? I don't know. Is there the time the laws are not in operation, the wisdom of God is not in operation, or is it relaxed somehow? Is it always in constant motion? These laws. And in terms of the chaos, of the world today, when you see people just running helter skelter in the mornings, are these laws? Do you think can we be certain that the laws of the Almighty Father are still in force and will be come to fruition, regardless of how we think of it or how we stand?
If there is chaos, then it is the initiator that have initiated such an activity, and the returns come at different times. Many are unable to articulate it and know what belongs where. Because of their inability to articulate precisely, they refer to these conglomerates as chaos. It is the laws themselves who return many a thing, many an activity back to the originator or to the group of furniture, group of originators. So we now have a mass of returns, which returns affect different people in different ways because they lack, or due to their indolence, they are unable to grasp these manifestations, which looks confusing to the eye, just like you will get to a machine shop with different bells running here and there. And because you do not understand how this thing functions, you will say it's chaotic. But for one who understands the functionalities and the functions of these machines, it's not chaotic. You will know what goes where, as you have when you are weaving a piece of cloth, where you have the loom, all the threads spinning here and there. It is the laws of creation, which laws themselves, the effect of them are dynamic. They are not things which are lifeless. These laws themselves are full of life, but these laws do not change. That is why they return to each individual what he has initiated or put into creation, what he himself has formed. It could be to an individual, it could be to a group, or to the whole earth. That is how it is. But more so, if there is chaos, then it is not the fault of the stones or of the mountains or of the plants or of the animal. There is chaos as man classifies it, then it is the fault of man who have done things without regard to the laws through which he himself came into existence.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much. Do you see there will be a purification of this process? Would there a purification come about at any point in time? And how would this, happen? Sure, leading up to the millennium, the kingdom of peace.
Very briefly, we kept discussing the laws of returns, which returns is that there are processes in the sowing and in the reaping, which is that of reciprocal action. There is also the spiritual law of gravitation, where that which is light ascends, whereas that which is dense will sink. We also have another law, which basically is that of the attraction of homogeneity. Put these three together, one can already see that there will come a time where, in returns, there will be some purifications. Purifications in the sense that many a thing which has been sown will have to return and the originator taste of it. If the originator has not improved himself before a particular period, he or she will sink and will not be able to remain at a particular level, maybe here on earth or maybe slightly higher. So these purifications which come into place come as a result of the operation of these laws and the intensification of the power which streams into creation. More of this one will find in the walk in the light of truth, where when the human spirit or a reader takes it calmly, humbly, and examine it in all objectivity, not paying regard to the author, but paying regard to what is being offered, to examine it deep within himself, and also the features he sees externally, he or she will reap in abundance.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gregory.
Yeah, thank you, Gregory.
So
Before you continue, man, I just want to tell the listeners, dear listeners, you're listening to Bless Radio. It's the Tuesday night spiritual discussion program, and as Gregory has mentioned, the aim of the show is to introduce you to the Grail message, and we urge you to pick up the Grail message. And if you want to get a copy or want some more information, you can go to this website, which is www.grailmessage.com. I'll spell that: www.grail, Grail, message, MESSAGE.com. And the topic for discussion tonight is the wisdom of the Lord. And if you have any questions or comments, you can call this or use this number to contact us, which is UK number, which is 079 444 313 66. You can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And if you're outside of UK, it is 0044 79 444 313 Again, you can call, text, or use WhatsApp. And one more thing I want to say, we are holding a talk in London this Saturday in the afternoon, 1 p.m. to 3 o'clock. It's near Baker Street Underground Station, 10 minutes walk, and the venue is Theosophical Society, 50 Gloucester Place, London W1U 8EA. So the time again is Saturday, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock at the Theosophical Society near Baker Street. Go ahead, Mena, please.
Yeah, there's a question from a listener. Is it true the Almighty works always in wisdom? Yeah, I think that again. Is it true the Almighty works always in wisdom?
Well,
But,
their question is already differentiating between the Almighty and the wisdom.
okay.
Therefore, one can only add to it to say, true, the manifestations of the workings of the Almighty is expressed through the will, which will is personal and which will is the wisdom, and also the love. It is just like you will find in a person's, just like is discussed in many, there are three persons: the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. One can consider a simple picture: the Father being the head, the love, which the right hand, the Holy Spirit, personification of divine wisdom, on the left. So these three persons, these three personalities, one from the Father is the power that sustains the wisdom, the power that sustains the love. But from this, the wisdom which rules creation. One can already see that pre-creation, the radiations that stream out of the Almighty form what is referred to as the divine realm. More of this one may find if one seeks diligently in the work in the light of truth.
Thank you, Gregory. I've got a question which is now, because I want to bring it a little bit on the human level and what's happening in the world today. Basically, we've talked about the wisdom of the Lord, but then I also want to look at the human behavior and, let's say, in quotes, human wisdom, if there is such a thing. So, if you look at people, I know we don't go into politics too much here, but right now there's the Brexit, which is in UK, very big discussion point or topic, and people are taking sides, whichever side they are on, and they're becoming very dogmatic or, let's say, intolerable of the other side, whichever side it is. It doesn't matter which side you're on, and they're behaving like, how can I say? You could say, we in the Grand Message we are told belief becomes conviction, and so people are taking let's say, their belief, and they want to act according to if that is also their conviction, and they want to, let's say, stick to their principles. But the way they behave with their fellow human beings who are, let's say, of a different conviction, it doesn't seem to be much wisdom there, or getting attacks verbally, even threats of killing people just because they happen to think differently, and we see a lot of trouble. So what I want to ask you, Gregory, is this dogmatic and how can I say, beliefs or principles, whatever the people are holding, how can we behave, uh, let's say in a human way, with some wisdom, rather than, because people are claiming, oh, this is my principle, or this is what it must be this way, and yet we got like 50-50, 50%, let's say, opposing, having an opposite view of the other side, and we don't seem to be able to tolerate anyone who is different to our views. So how can we, in this situation, and I know this not only in this particular issue, actually, this is just a big example of what is happening right now. I'm sure there could be other things like this, let's say, where there's people believing in certain beliefs, or in certain countries fighting for so-called their freedom, and they feel justified to, use violence even to get what they want. So how, Gregory, can we live in a harmonious way when we have all these very opposing views?
Of course, man is free to choose, to decide. Man should never forget that their origin is paradise. One very simple picture which many may have. Whenever you travel to a different country and hear that there's somebody from your country, you want to get close to that person. Whether that person is bad or not, you're not sure. If that person you want to get close to, if he's from the same region on that country, you'll be in a hurry to get close to him. If that person happened to be from the same town or from the same village, that person becomes your brother or your sister. You don't know this person. And when you meet with this person, you are very objective. You want to do everything you can to help. That is what many do intellectually or instinctively. Now consider that men should now realize that they have traveled from the paradise of man to experience in the world of matter, which is very far away. How should they behave to one another? Now, the answer was very clear when Christ was asked, "And who is my neighbor?" And he gave the picture of someone who fell among robbers, was beaten, injured. A priest came, turned the other way. A Levite, those who are supposed to know, turned there. Then came an ordinary person, despised the Samaritan, who now paid the bills, did everything for that person. Basically, what is stressed here is that you have human spirits who have lost touch with their deep intuition. For were they in touch? Were they listening to their intuition? Then they will know that these other people who, like themselves, are here to experience and make it back home to paradise, are struggling to do so just like themselves. And they will support one another to achieve that which the human spirit needs here on earth. But a human spirit is asleep and follows only the intellectual dictation. that fights what is simple, that want to exact on others, tell others what to do, why he himself is not even doing it. One can already differentiate that many of these are clueless. They lack any personal conviction, but are like those who vociferate the highest, who cry out today, Hosanna, without even understanding. If they had the understanding, many of the things which they do, they would not do. So the answer becomes very simple. These are the ones who have refused to wash themselves clean, while at the same time attacking those who live in simplicity and wish to be of use, not only to themselves, but also their neighbors.
Thank you.
Thanks you so much,
We're
Greg.
running out of time now. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Gregory and Mena, for joining on the show tonight. We've come to the end of the show, listeners. Hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back next week, Tuesday, as usual, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. with a new topic. Um, Gregory, is there anything you'd like to say goodbye to the listeners?
Well, I wish them a beautiful week.
Thank you. And Mena, anything you'd like to say to the listeners?
Yeah, thank you, listeners, and I do encourage you to examine the work. Thank you.
And of course, same from me, dear listeners. Have a great week, and God bless. And join us again next Tuesday. All the best. Brother Siam's next, so please stay on for him. Take care, everybody.